Welcome to the 20th, woohoo, 20th edition of the Speakeasy Dwellers podcast. It is I, your host, Jared, once again. It is currently, let me check the time, it is currently 10:52 p.m. on January 20th, 2024. Oh, man, what a week it has been. I guess a lot of things not happening. That makes it, kind of boring at the end of the day. I guess the theme for this week has been try to find things to do in order to occupy your time, try to rekindle things that you used to like to do. Just trying to create distractions, for lack of a better term. I ended up getting two posters today. Or actually, it was yesterday. Today's Saturday. I got it on Friday. I completely forgot about them. They ended up coming as a bundle when I got this calendar from a YouTuber called Kurskanaut. And Kurskanaut, he's an infographic YouTuber. Creates a lot of hypothetical situations and what are the scientific reasons for how to solve these problems. But I ended up getting a calendar with them, and my dad was like, "Hey, do any of these posters, tickle your fancy?" Because they came with a bundle, and each of these posters are like $25 a piece. So, and the calendar was like $30, and so the entire bundle was only like $55. So you would actually be saving basically the entire poster worth of money. So I was like, hey, this space one looks really cool, and I gotta say, it is probably one of the coolest things I have in my room right now are these two posters. One of them basically describes how stars are formed, like the life cycle of a star as it goes from clouds of gas to a ball of energy to eventually being a supernova, going supernova and then going into a black hole and then eventually going towards gas, as with the death of the universe. And then this other one is it's a map of all the different star constellations in our observable sky, and recommendations on how to properly night gaze, and what all the different constellations names are and where they're located. And I think that's pretty cool, seeing that. But I don't know how much use of it I'm gonna have, but still pretty nice to be able to have a room that is actually mostly decorated. There's not a lot of dead wall space here. Pretty much almost every nook and cranny is filled. As I'm looking at my wall, I'm looking at my window. So a big problem I've had since the beginning of the semester was I have my desk right next to a window. So about midday, the sun hits directly at my window in the perfect way, so that whenever I'm trying to do work, there will always be glare on my screen, even though I have my blinds turned. There will always be glare, and it's just super annoying. So ended up investing in blackout curtains, which not only reduced the glare significantly, but also will help me sleep in the morning and not be rudely awakened, or whenever I want to take naps during the day, I can sleep without being blinded by the light. But I make the mistake of accidentally shipping it to my home address all the way back in New York instead of shipping it down here. And I was really excited on Friday because it was supposed to come in that day. And I was like, oh yay, I gotta track this package when it's gonna come in. Hopefully it comes in before 6 so I can get the notification and everything. And then I checked there and it's like, oh my gosh, I see my hometown New York. And I was like, oh, you gotta be joking me. So I text my dad, I'm like, hey dad, I actually sent it to the wrong address. He's like, don't worry about it, we'll reorder it and then we'll just return the package when it comes here. And I'm like, okay. So now it's coming in on Monday, so it's not the end of the world. It's still coming relatively soon, but it's just a shame that I have to go through an entire weekend without them, even though I was planning on doing it. Um, let's see what else is there. Uh, the other day we had the band banquet, and that was pretty neat. What I thought was the funniest thing about everything was before that I knew what happened last time at the banquet, and I remember how like I wouldn't say boring it was, but just I wish things were a bit spiced up and things were a bit more friendly. But obviously nobody could do it because we were on an away trip. But since the band banquet was here in Colombia, people could start pre-gaming it, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to pre-game the band banquet. And when I say pre-game, I'm not talking about getting like drunk and then showing up to the band banquet. No, 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 no. I ended up putting a calculator out for like my blood alcohol content percentage, and I put it to just enough so I'd get a buzz at least in order to get like relaxed and friendly, and have it last the amount of time that I wanted to, and it was like 2 hours. So it was for my body weight, it would only be 2 shots worth of liquor in order to get me buzzed to the point where I could go through that entire thing and be just buzzed and not have to worry about anything. And also so I don't overdrink. But I mean I don't think I have an issue when it comes to drinking. Like I've never like other than one time where I did overdrink, but that was more for experimentation than for other reasons. But I like to think of myself as a responsible drinker. I mean, I like to keep it down to once a week if at that, and when I do, it's in seldom. Apart from other people who I know who go out and drink almost every other day. It's your life to ruin, not mine. But in other news, recently saw that La La Land is getting taken off of Netflix, which I don't know why. I never really looked into it, but I find it odd. Like, did I think La La Land was a great movie? I thought it was an okay movie, considering everything. There were some parts in it where I was like, all right, I get it. There's a bunch of relationship drama, yada yada yada. Let me scroll through all this. And I don't know what I would have done in the movie theater at the time if I didn't have the fast forward feature. But the ending of it made all of it worth watching, because you had this spoiler warning. You had them go through this like love story, and they're like 2 unlikely like people, but they turn out to be perfect for each other. But then eventually they want to take 2 different career paths. The girl wants to be a playwright, and the guy wants to be a jazz musician. And both of them get their goals. The woman eventually lands a big job as a screenwriter and an actor, and the guy eventually lands himself as a jazz pianist for this new techno jazz group, for the younger audiences. And what eventually happens is that their relationship is strained because he has to go out and tour the world while she just stays at home and work on her play. And it just takes a toll on their relationship. And even though they are emotionally perfect for each other, it was just right place, wrong time situation. So they had to learn that it just wasn't meant to be, even though as much as it felt like it was meant to be. It just, both of them couldn't achieve their goals couldn't achieve their dreams without leaving the other. And that's what ends up happening in the end of the film. Is the girl becomes successful, has a family, has a husband, and she's a famous actor and playwright. And the guy fulfills his dream of opening his own jazz club, and he becomes popular in his own right. But they both achieved their dreams, but they didn't have each other. And there's this entire flashback, alternate universe, where they both achieved their dreams, and they're both happy. But what you have to realize is that they would have never known that of how to live their perfect life if they never went through all that pain. It was kind of like an idealization. So it was like it's sad that having like the right person at the wrong time. And it's like, even though you are meant to be, it's just you have to accept the fact that, you know, it's just you're just not ready for that, or it's just never going to work out the way you want it to. It's coping with that. It's coping with that for just so I don't ramble on and become redundant. But you get the idea of what I'm trying to say. At least I hope. I hope I'm clear enough. But it's sad to see that go off of Netflix. I'm glad I watched it on there when it was there. I don't know if that's supposed to, I think it's supposed to go down like this week or something. I don't know when it's gonna come back. Sorry, I'm tired. I took a little sleep gummy before this. It's supposed to have its effects right about now. So that's why I'm a bit on the tired side. I'm telling you, trying to fall asleep last night was an absolute nightmare. I'm surprised I woke up in the morning to go shopping the way, like, as energized as I was. You know, if I didn't know it, if they didn't know any better, they would have thought I was drunk. I'll be honest with you with how, like, you know, perky I was. Like, I'm telling you, I went to bed, and then it was on and off sleep. I'd get like 20 minutes of, not even 20 minutes of rest. It was like originally like 5 minutes of rest, and then I had a sudden urge to like look at my phone, and then it was like go back to 10 minutes of rest, and then look at my phone, and it was like, oh my gosh. And that went on for like an hour or two, and that went on till like 2 in the morning, right? And then eventually I guess I got tired enough, because I ended up popping a sleeping gummy, and then because I haven't had those in a while, because I haven't really had bad sleeping habits up until recently, until I moved down here. Ended up putting some like meditative music on and listened to it on Spotify, and that kind of calmed me down. So instead of me waking up every like 5-10 minutes, I ended up waking up every like 30 minutes to an hour, and then eventually the hours became 2 hours. But it was just it was terrible trying to sleep, and I felt powerless to everything. But I wonder if that forces me to make big decisions on how I want to live my life, but I don't know. Like, I think I briefly touched upon it in my New Year, New Me episode, where I was talking about how it's terrible to have like a revenge-oriented mind. And I feel like what's killing me, like it's eating at me in the inside, is this revenge mindset that I have to get back at them. I have to show them how I am right now without them. Like how much fun I'm having. Look at all the things I'm doing. Look how much happier I am without you. But at the exact same time, the fact that I'm so obsessive, or not, sorry, the fact that I'm so obsessed with the fact that I have to get back at this person is slowly eating away at me, and I'm feeling the consequences of it. So it's like, the dilemma I have is like, do I block them and then forget about it for the rest of my life? Or do I just thug it out? And I don't know, because I've tried like looking at it as just pressing that block button, and there's something deep inside me that stops me from doing it. And it's not like out of kindness, like, oh, I feel too bad for them, or it's this obsession on trying to just get back and, like, you know, just have them be jealous of my life, even though there really isn't anything to be jealous about right now. Like, hell, I just stay in my room all day and just play games on a computer. Like, I feel bad whenever, because I am not ready to be in a relationship whatsoever, because one of the, like, I'm really big on conversations, but then when it comes to like date night, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, again, I don't even know, other than just talking. Like, I don't know where to go, how I should act, what to talk about while I'm there. It's just that I'm just not emotionally there enough to be able to have like dates and stuff. And I haven't had that ability for a long time. So it's like, why am I out here seeking relationships, seeking to be with someone, but then I know deep inside, when it comes down to it, I'm not gonna be able to do anything about it, and it's just gonna be like, there's gonna be this wonderful girl who I'm gonna be like madly in love with, and I'm not gonna be able to give her the treatment that she deserves because I don't know what the hell I'm doing with my life. So just trying to figure out that balance of when I'm ready. And maybe I'll never know when I'm ready. Maybe I'll never be ready. Maybe that's just maybe that's the reality of everything, is that you're never ready for all these different things, but how you respond to them is what makes you different. Like it's like performance anxiety. Everybody has it. Even like the biggest actors and biggest singers, they all have performance anxiety. But what separates people who are, less good, for terrible English, less good at their art compared to people that are, seen as pillars and are exemplary at their art, is they just see the challenge and they just know how to rise above it. They don't try to avoid the conflict there. They just acknowledge its existence and try to move on. Or not move on, just move through it and just work with it. And I feel like that's just what I kind of have to do. Is maybe I'll never be like truly ready for a relationship, or I'll never know when I'm ready for a relationship. But when it does come, I need to know how to respond in certain ways that, out of all these different events, traumas, and experiences that I've had, just be able to make smarter decisions when I, eventually go out there. But falling back on the, my life is boring idea, I recently read a quote, I didn't read a quote, I listened to a quote from this Disney movie called Soul, which, by the way, I will never stop talking about actually how, like, S tier that movie is. Like, it is, like, one of the greatest films I have ever, like, seen, and I think it's criminally underrated. No, but, like, I don't think people talk enough about that film. Like, it is one of the, like, the last great Disney films of, recent history. And that was a COVID film, too, so. But, the main character, he ends up achieving his dream of performing with this one jazz group, and he did very well on there. And this entire movie built up to this climactic moment where he finally overcame all these obstacles, and he finally achieved his dream. And then at the end of it, he didn't feel different. He felt the same, and he thought he was going to feel differently about everything, because again, this was like his dream. Like, the audience was tricked into thinking that he tricked himself into thinking that this was what he wanted most in life, was to be this jazz musician, and every single decision that he ever made was purely with the goal of fulfilling this dream. And then when he eventually got it, he just, like, he felt empty. He didn't feel the emotions he thought he was going to feel. He didn't enjoy it the way he thought he was going to enjoy it. And then the musician is like, well, did I ever tell you about the story about a fish? The fish goes up to the older fish and asks them, hey, do you know where the ocean is? The older fish replies, what? The ocean? You're in it right now. You're swimming through it. And the younger fish is like, what? This? This is water. I want the ocean. And let's just sit on that and dissect it for a minute. So, it's a perfect analogy for what the guy is going on right there. And what the fish wants is, they want the ocean, this big vast thing that they've heard so much about. And what the fish doesn't realize is that they've been living in the ocean their entire life. This thing, this dream that they've always wanted to be, this extravagant thing, but they've always seen it as just water, just a body of water. They didn't think it was the ocean. And when eventually the person was like, "Yeah, this is the ocean," and it's like, "No, this isn't. This isn't the ocean. You know, this is lame. This is weird. The ocean would never be like this. This is just water." And I think a good way of interpreting that story is that you never know how well off your life is until you get to another point, and then you realize it's like, maybe this isn't the life that I really wanted at the end of the day. You know, you feed yourself lies about what the ideal life you had, and then you didn't realize that you were already living that life. But you were constantly in denial. Like in the case of the guy, he always wanted to play jazz and play for music. But then when he eventually got there, he was like, "Oh, I'm just doing the exact same thing I've always been doing. But, I'm just doing with this other band," and it didn't seem fun anymore. Like, it was just more of an activity he wanted to do rather than something he wanted to do for the rest of his life. And I don't know. Like, as much as I complain about my own life, like, I know it isn't bad. Like I say this semester is like ruined and everything, but I don't know how one person can ruin an entire semester. Like, I refuse to believe how one person can ruin an entire semester. My entire objectiveness of it, or subjectiveness, I don't know, of how it is. Like, the semester just started a week ago, and I'm already saying, "Oh my gosh, I want this all to be over." Like, there was still so much left to experience in this semester before it's all over, and I don't stop and smell the roses a lot, and I take a lot of the things I have in my life for granted, because again, I'm so caught up in thinking that my life is already terrible enough and all these things around me are just terrible. But there's a lot of positives that I just completely ignore. Like the fact that I have people to talk to. Like, I'll say that I have chronic loneliness, but I do have people to hang out with. I do have people to talk to. I just don't talk to them as much as I want, like as much as I feel like I want to. And it's kind of that self-eating, perpetual cycle of hate. And I don't know. I don't want it to eat away at me. And I always say that in order to cure this, this loneliness in me, I have to get a girl. But then once I get there, it's like, then what? Then what? You got the girl, you cured your loneliness, but who do you have outside? Like, maybe? Okay, now I'm good. Alright, sorry I got cut off there. My headphone ended up dying, so that was very tragic. Very, very, very tragic. So, I must have got cut off there in the middle of a sentence. But I don't know where exactly I left off. But, like, once I guess my ocean, for lack of a better term, is being in a relationship. And I believe that relationship will cure my chronic loneliness that I constantly feel. But once I get to getting that relationship, then what? What happens next? Outside of that relationship, like, that relationship cannot be the end all be all. Like, if that person isn't talking to you, then what do? You just go back to that chronic loneliness. You don't grow from that. You think of the life you currently have as water, and you think the girl is the ocean. But the life you currently have is the ocean. And Maybe the girl is like a coral reef or something that just, changes the scenery. And, you have to build friends. You have to go out. You have to find things that you want to do. Because if you don't find those things, you're never going to be ready for when, the coral reef pops up. And, you now believe that you're in the ocean. Like, my life is an ocean, but I like to think of it as water. And the girl is the ocean, but if I were to ever be in the ocean, I would just think of it as water, because it might as well have been the Dead Sea. Because outside of that girl, what other's life do I have outside of that? And I think that's one of the terrible things, is that having social, let's see, what's the word I want to use? Having distractions is a great thing to have. It's not something to be embarrassed about. Because one of the greatest things that you can always remind yourself after having relationships fall apart is that your life isn't over, and that there are so many people that have been waiting on the sideline for you to come back that you didn't know that you left the entire time. And they will help you regain, they will help you, pick you up off, not pick you up off your feet, but like pick you up after you fall and help you walk again. They will help rehabilitate you into the life that you've always had, but you kind of put on the back burner because you had something that takes priority. And your relationships always take priority. Well, not always, obviously within the boundaries of realism here. Like, you don't want to be in an abusive relationship and always take the relationship portion of it ahead of everything. But I think what was the worst things about having that breakdown happen was I invested so much into this one relationship that I ended up burning a lot of bridges. And I became so obsessed with having this relationship with one person that I didn't develop the relationships that I already had. So by the time that relationship was over, it took up 90% of my other relationships. So now think of 100% of my relationships and think of 90% of them gone. Now what do I have? I have nothing. And that's what I've been trying to build up from. I've been trying to grow that 10% to 20%, to 30%, to 40%, to 50%, to eventually 100%. And then eventually partition, some of that to another priority. And I feel like if I had if it was like 50-50, I don't think I would have had as strong of a reaction as I have exhibited if things were different. That's actually a really healthy way of thinking about it. I just realized this. Complete side note. A lot of people recently have been finding out I have a podcast, and one person was like, yeah, I was like, I just casually mentioned that I had a podcast, or at least I discussed the topic in my podcast that they were talking about. I was like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about because I have talked about this before in this podcast. And they're like, yeah, you have a great podcast voice. I was like, I'm being 100% serious. I have a podcast. And they're like, no way you have a podcast. I was like, yes, I do have a podcast. And I showed them, were like, damn, you have a podcast. I was like, yeah. Most of these episodes are terrible because they're not really podcasts. I feel like this podcast has just evolved into audio diaries of myself talking about my thoughts and how my day had been. Yawn. So slowly building traction around here, and I think what's the coolest things is that afterwards they'll respond and give me feedback on it or whatever they thought about it. And one thing is that they'll always if I ever go through a really depressing episode, for I think it was episode 17 where it was the forgotten episode. Or was it the forgotten episode? That might have been 18. No. 17 was the forgotten episode. That was really depressing. I ended up crying on that one. And, several people reached out. They're like, hey, listen to the podcast. Just checking in to make sure you're okay, because, that was some pretty, tough stuff that you went through. And I was like, yes, thank you. And I appreciate them for reaching out. I always will. They're real ones. I wish I was able to develop a relationship with them more. Friendship, for lack of that's the word I want. Friendship with them more. No, one person that I thought was like one of the biggest compliments is like, it's rugged. I will admit, it's not a professional podcast, and I never planned to have it be a professional podcast. This is more just a side project that I do to, I guess, check up on myself and just have conversations audibly instead of keeping inside my head all the time. Because, I'll have conversations like these with people, but, those obviously are not being recorded. And if I ever were to record conversations like that, it just wouldn't be the same as if it was like, nobody was wired. So I have these conversations with myself. And what's good about these podcasts is that, I'm able to audibly have a conversation with myself and talk about my thoughts and feelings. And someone said it was a bit rugged. Some of the music was loud, but they thought it was very sweet what I was saying. And it was just real. It was just down to earth real. And I was just like, yeah, I like to keep a real opinion over there. You're gonna get I wouldn't say the nitty gritty in my life, but you get a good overview of how exactly I think through things and what my current thought process is. And you just get to like get a glimpse into my mind and my life, and how I'm doing and how I think. Just the other day, I don't know how I brought up the podcast, but it was like they were talking about how in the last video that I had that the music was too loud and that they needed that I needed like an audio director in order to have the sound be mixed properly. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. And then the person I was walking with, she was like, wait, you have a podcast? I was like, yeah, I have a podcast. She's like, you gotta be joking. I was like, no, I'm 100% serious. I have a podcast. And the other girl was like, yeah, he has a podcast. And she's like, and it's on Spotify? I was like, yes, it is on Spotify. And then she's like, okay, let me look you up. And I was like, and she was like, oh my god. And I was just like, aw. So, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever gonna follow up on that person and ask them what they actually think, because I do have to give out pointers. I do have to say that like a couple episodes, or at least the episodes that I recommend listening to, are all the solo episodes. But realistically speaking, if you're listening to this, anything beyond passion projects for Allstate, Allstate Experience and Passion Projects, I think is what the title of that is. Anything that's recent, like I think it's an update of how I'm doing. I think that might be episode 14, episode 15. I don't know which one that one is, but that was the first episode I released when I was in college, and that was during my fall semester. Any of those episodes till now are all good episodes to listen to, because those are probably the most high quality, the most I've gotten everything together. And yeah, because I recently listened to Passion Projects, and man, I spent the first 20 minutes of that episode trying to figure out mic issues the entire time. And it was just got really boring to listen to. And then when I tried like talking about my Allstate experience, I know I went through that, but I was even bored listening to it. I was like, man, I was not really good at talking with myself. And this was an hour episode. And honestly, I think I just started rambling on for a bit there. And I was like, how is this an hour episode? That is just a crazy statement. And I felt more, I guess, more in tune with the following episode, where it was the update on how I'm doing. And that one, you hear an immediate difference in my, the audio quality and how the entire thing is organized. My voice is audibly different as well because there's about a year difference between those two episodes, and a mic difference as well. Um, so I'd be like, hey, if you really want to listen to it and get like a good experience, don't listen to any of the group podcasts because those are really terrible and unorganized. If you just really want to like, sit around and and just listen to people laugh for God knows what, because we don't even talk about anything serious. We're just sitting around and just talking about inside jokes. That's just not even like funny nor relatable. But at least you get like stuff like this, my my self podcasts, where I just it does have a structure, even though it doesn't seem like it. But I do ramble on a lot about just how everything is, so it's a lot more, I guess, enjoyable to listen to. It's a one-way conversation. I'm talking to you, and you're just listening to me. It's like a radio show host, which I don't know if I should do a radio show host. I feel like nobody will listen to me, but I don't even know what even music I'd even play on. I'd be honest with you, if I would ever become like a radio show host. But not really good with interviews. I'm not even good when it comes to like, when a project's over and you're presenting a class and they ask people, it's like, hey, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns? And they have the floor open for Q&A. I don't even know how to even like ask a question there, let alone interview someone, because a Q&A session is basically interviewing someone to see if they're able to like answer your question to the best of their ability, and when they don't, it just makes you look smarter and makes them look dumber. Well, in the absolute worst case scenario, it makes them look terrible. It makes you look smart. It reminds me of never mind. I will briefly touch on it because I feel like I'll be terrible like 3 months down the line, and I'll be like, oh, I know exactly what I was talking about, but why didn't I mention it? There was a guy who recently broke up with his girlfriend. This was a Reddit story, by the way, and out of pettiness, he ended up researching the hell out of her topic, so much so that he knew it better than her. So when she ended up presenting the project, he just berated her with questions, and it made her look like she knew absolutely nothing about the project. And for him, it made it seem like it was common knowledge. So I was like, damn, that is just a level of pettiness I strive for. But hopefully, people don't ask a lot of questions about when I do projects and stuff. But yeah, hopefully I'm able to build a well-rounded knowledge of what I'll be presenting and researching this year. I got a engineering ethics, so I'll be doing a case study on the World Trade Centers, which that'll be interesting. And then I have to do ethics presentations on the Deepwater Horizon BP oil spill. And then what's the other one I'm doing? I think it's the I-37 highway. I could be mistaken, but I have to start researching for those. Those are like in like 3 weeks, which is like, they're in 3 weeks. Like, holy shit. I'm not ready to be prepared for any of those. I'm trying to even like get homework done now. It's like it's the second week of school and I'm already struggling over homework. It's like, oh man. Maybe that's why I want this, the school year to be over, is because I'm already struggling with the homework, and I really don't like. Can I just go back to just sleeping in, eating, and playing games? Like, come on, man. But yeah. I am in the market for looking for a roommate for next semester. I ended up reaching out to this one guy. I reached out to like 4 people. Only one of them has responded, and I've been having contact with him. So same situation when I met Oscar my freshman year. So I think it'll all work out, considering considering my luck. But what I'm gonna do for next year is see if I can get like a 4-person dorm. Because oh my gosh, I thought it was bothersome having someone else sleep in the same room as me, and I was like, I have the opportunity to be sleeping by myself. This would be great. And then I got here, and then about like a month or 2 in, And I was just like, man, this is so lonely compared to what it was last year. And it's because of all this isolationism that I have, because I have this room all to myself. And the only thing I have is a common living space to, gather people and chat around with, but I don't, gather people, and I rarely ever chat around. So I was like, okay, how can I force myself to be in an environment where I'm almost always in contact with people? And the only way I can think about doing that is by having a larger, a larger space. So it's like, oh, okay, that would be nice. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's a lot to unpack. I mean, I'm even surprised I was able to talk relatively without stuttering for about 41 minutes. I feel bad for y'all who have sat through this entire thing. I sure hope some of y'all sat through this entire thing. I'd be giving you a weird look if you didn't. I mean, no. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You can quit whenever you want to. But I'd be very surprised if you stayed through this entire thing and just let me ramble on. And I appreciate that you stayed this entire time and heard me ramble on. Really inspires me to talk more. But yeah, I think that'll be all from me today. I thank y'all for listening. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify, rate the show. Tell me how you're doing. I think it's a little Q&A thing that they ask you at the end of your thoughts and stuff. And try to do that. And just try to recommend it to your friends if you really think it's that good of a series to listen to. And yeah, and I think I'll see you next time. Bye bye.